Here's something nobody tells you about turning 40. You still want to see the world, but now you want to actually see it. You're not chasing the tourist track anymore. You're looking for quiet inside it. Silence is what you hunt for. Not speeding through the checklist, not Instagramming your way across the map. Just being in it. I remember my 20s. I was racing through European capitals like I was being chased. 3 cities in 5 days, sleeping on overnight trains, living off pastries and spite. And you know what? It was amazing at the time. But these days, the thought of that schedule makes me need a nap. Because somewhere between youth hostels and now, something shifted. Travel stopped being a competition with myself. Look, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with whirlwind trips when you're young. That Eiffel Tower selfie matters when you're 23. Hitting 5 countries in 2 weeks feels like an accomplishment. Partying until sunrise in Bangkok and then somehow making a 6 a.m. temple tour, that feels like a badge of honor. But after 40, your body starts sending you polite but firm messages. That third espresso doesn't hit the same. Your feet hurt more. And honestly, you just don't want to anymore.
The weird part is how good that feels. In my 20s, travel was escape. After 40, it's a check-in. At least, that's what happened to me. These days, I'd rather spend an entire morning at one café in Lisbon than rush through 10 landmarks before lunch. I want to watch how the light changes on the buildings, eavesdrop on conversations I don't understand but can somehow still follow. That waiter who remembers how you take your coffee by day 3, that's the stuff that sticks with you. You start measuring trips differently, not by how many sites you checked off, but by how many moments made you stop and think, oh, this is why I came here. The pace slows way down. And weirdly, that's when things get interesting. I had to learn this the hard way. Typical for me. Last year, I tried to prove I still had that young, relentless energy. So I booked a tight 4-day mountain trek in the high country. No rest days, no slack in the schedule. On day 2, I ignored a dull ache in my right knee because I didn't want to look soft. I kept pushing, stepping heavily onto loose granite, until something went out with an ugly, wet pop. I tore my meniscus. I didn't get a heroic helicopter rescue. I limped 4 miles down a muddy trail with a broken pine branch as a crutch, while a group of retirees strolled past me with trekking poles. 6 weeks on the couch and $1,200 in physio later, my pride hurt more than my knee. But that failure forced me to change how I look at distance. In my 20s and early 30s, travel was absolutely about escape. Getting away from the job I wasn't sure about, the relationship that wasn't quite right, the general sense that I still hadn't figured out who I was yet. Distance felt like freedom. But after 40, you've done enough work on yourself. Therapy, anyone? That you're not trying to outrun your life anymore. You've built something. Maybe it's a career that finally fits. Maybe it's a family. Maybe it's just a version of yourself you actually like. So travel becomes less about getting away and more about getting present. When you're not rushing, you start wanting real conversations. Not just where are you from, hostile small talk, but actual exchanges with actual humans. The woman at the market who teaches you how to pick the best tomatoes. The Uber driver who tells you about his daughter's wedding. The other couple at dinner who end up recommending a restaurant that becomes your favorite meal of the trip. These connections matter more than monuments now. And here's the thing. When you're not rushing, when you're not exhausted, when you're not hungover, you're actually available for those moments. You notice them. You participate in them.
Travel stops being about proving you went somewhere and starts being about actually going there, fully, presently, without one foot already on the next experience.
In my 20s, I wore discomfort like a medal. After 40, sleep is my passport. Let's just address this head on. That hostel with 8 bunk beds and 1 bathroom, I'm too old for that nonsense. And I'm not apologizing. There's this weird badge of honor in travel culture. Like the more you suffer, the more authentic your experience. But you know what I've learned? Being exhausted and cranky doesn't make you more enlightened. It just makes you exhausted and cranky. After 40, you start understanding that your energy is limited. Not in a sad way, just in a very practical, this is how bodies work kind of way. And if you blow all your energy on a terrible mattress and no sleep, you've got nothing left for the actual travel part. So yeah, I book the nicer hotel room now. The one with the comfortable bed and the window that opens, and maybe even a little balcony. Not because I'm fancy, I'm definitely not, but because when I wake up rested, I can actually enjoy my day. I can walk 10 miles through a new city and feel energized instead of resentful. I can stay curious instead of just counting down until I can collapse somewhere. This isn't about luxury travel. You don't need thread counts or champagne. But a quiet room where you can actually sleep, a place to make your own coffee in the morning, maybe a small kitchen so you can hit the local market and cook something nice. These things quietly decide what kind of trip you're going to have. Comfort becomes the foundation that lets everything else happen. And once you accept that, travel gets so much better. In my 20s, the camera was the main character. After 40, it's just a notepad. I've got about 47 photos from my last trip to Portugal. My 25-year-old self would have had 4,700. That younger version of me was so busy documenting everything that I'm not sure I actually saw anything. Every sunset needed 5 photos from slightly different angles. Every moment existed primarily as future proof that I'd been there.
But here's what happens after 40. You start trusting your memory more than your camera roll. You watch the sunset instead of photographing it, and somehow it burns itself into your brain more permanently than any image file ever could. You taste your dinner without thinking about captions. You have a conversation without mentally composing how you'll describe it later. I'm not against photos. I still take them. But now they're quick, almost like visual notes. This angle of this building because the light was perfect. That street sign because it made me laugh. The view from my morning coffee spot. That's it. The rest of the time, I'm just there, looking, listening, feeling the sun or the rain or the wind, smelling whatever's cooking somewhere nearby, noticing details that would disappear if I was staring at a screen. And when I do share photos later, back home, they mean more. Because they're not performing the trip for an audience. They're just little anchors for memories that are already fully formed in my head.
The surprising thing about travel after 40 is how much quieter it gets. Not in volume, but in intention. You're not collecting countries anymore. You're not chasing bucket list items. You're paying attention to what places reveal about you. Travel turns into a kind of mirror. It shows you who you are right now, at this exact moment in your life. What you're drawn to, what exhausts you, what lights you up, what you're still carrying that maybe you could put down. And because you're older, you actually pay attention to these lessons instead of just bulldozing through them. I spent 3 days in Kyoto last year, mostly sitting in different gardens. Just sitting. Younger me would have been bored out of his mind, but current me needed to learn how to be still, how to let thoughts come and go without grabbing onto them. Those gardens taught me more than any museum or tour ever could. That's the shift. Experiences stop being about bragging rights and start being about understanding, about growth, about coming home slightly different than you left, in ways that matter.
My favorite part of any trip these days happens on the first morning. Not the last morning before going home. The first morning after I arrive. I wake up early because of time zones or excitement or both. The city outside is just starting to stir. I make coffee or tea in my little rental kitchen, or I find a quiet cafe that's just opening. And I sit there with nothing to do yet, nowhere to be, no agenda demanding my attention. That space, that quiet possibility, that's everything. It's not about the activities that fill up the rest of the day. It's about that moment of presence, of being fully where you are, of feeling the aliveness of being somewhere new without needing to do anything about it yet. Travel after 40 is less noise, more signal, fewer checkboxes, more meaning. You stop trying to see everything and start actually seeing something, really seeing it, deeply, slowly, completely.
And here's what nobody tells you. This way of traveling is so much better. The memories stick harder. The lessons land deeper. The joy feels fuller. At some point, you owe it to yourself to stop sprinting through your own life. Responsibility to yourself means knowing when to slow down. You're not performing travel anymore. You're just living somewhere else for a while, being yourself, and letting those two things collide in small, important ways. The world doesn't need to move fast to move you. In fact, the slower you go, the deeper it lands. If you think your best travel days ended at 40, I'm here to tell you, this is where the real adventure starts. I'm in the middle of redesigning my life around this slower way of moving through the world, toward a long-term life in Southeast Asia. If you want to see what that actually looks like, hit subscribe for more reflections from the road.